I want to share with you a story about an experience that I have had in context to a relationship with one of the ghosts of lovers past, the final ghost of lovers past, the one that I had met when I was 30 years old. And after a whirlwind romance, I felt very, very bonded to him, and I felt that I was in love. And the video today is really important in terms of what it means as an awakened woman to understand or recognize the difference between discernment and anxious attachment before you start diagnosing yourself. And I've been umming and ahhing around this for a while because I pride myself on having very strong intuition, number one. Um, And and yet in this particular situation, I wasn't able to really tell the difference between my discernment, which I now know is clearly discernment, and by reading everything and like tuning in, because as a light worker, as an awakened woman, as somebody who is self-aware and secure, you are actually more likely to turn the tables within and look at yourself and say, "Oh, what is it about me that's creating this situation? What is it mirroring to me about this idea?" I remember after narcissistic abuse, consistently having been raised with it and then experiencing it in partnership, in relationship, etc. I asked, "Am I the narcissist?" And when you're asking yourself, "Am I the narcissist?" You know that's not you're not a narcissist. Yeah. But this is what I want to say. So let's look at the context. The context was this was a man that I felt very, very deeply for. But what happened was after 3 months, he said, "I need to go home and raise my son," because he had a 1-year-old child at the time and had said he was separated from the child's mother. And so I that happened on February the 14th, 2015. So after being with me every day, after having such deep bonding, and this is why it's important, I think, to really, as an awakened woman who is intentionally looking to date somebody who is healthy and secure and wants a relationship, um, why having casual sex, it can be a rocky road, because what actually is happening is every time you're having sex, and if it's daily, you are bonding with that person. So it's gonna blur your ability to make correct choices for yourself in regards to whether that person is aligned with you and somebody that you could pursue in a real way. But nonetheless, there was this deep, deep, deep love for this man. And it seemed real. We went on holiday together. We'd booked a holiday. By the time for the April, he'd already gone home, back home. And when he came back, when we had the holiday, I found a wedding ring in a see-through purse that he'd had on the side. And I said, "Is this your wedding ring?" And he was like, "No, no, no. It's my grandmother's ring. It's like not my ring." Da, da, da. But a week after we arrived home, I received a call from a woman who said, "Why were you in Thailand with my husband?" So he was married, he had been married. Anyway, after 10 months of him turning up out of the blue when I had made a declaration to the universe and opened myself to to actually now being open to sacred union, and after 5 years of celibacy and a long time of actually many, many years of not being in partnership, because I've actually either was too busy with work and wasn't really interested, or because I was happy in my singledom, because I felt that I would have to give away some of my freedom And also, after many, many years of actually just never meeting an equal, I decided I actually was ready for to open myself now to create a sacred union. And he three men turned up from the past, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. I knew there were lessons to be learned. But he turned up, and that desire in my like that I haven't had for so long, like rushed through my chakra system. But what transpired was he wasn't pursuing, he wasn't initiating, and this like knowing that I wanted to recreate what we'd had in the past, considering this time he said that he'd been split from his wife for 3 years. He rang me out of the blue and said, I've been split from my wife for 3 years. And it just that like the possibility and the potential of what that could mean for us all came alive on my system. But what he did, he was withholding and he wasn't initiating, he wasn't planning, he wasn't pursuing, which led to me to really step into that role of over functioning, of initiating, of pursuing, which was completely out of polarity and the dynamics, which led me down to many roads of investigation. But what I really want to say is this. When I am pursued in a healthy, normal way, and there is consistency in communication, there is consistency as a baseline, I have never had a had an anxious attachment. I have never obsessed or um felt the way that I have. There was no feeling of ever being needy or of rumination, obsessive thoughts about the person, when would they call? And has what I've realized, it wasn't that I have or had an activation of anxious attachment at all, but it was the absence of consistency and the truth around the feeling and the deep knowing in my intuition that this connection itself was unhealthy and that there was withholding and that there was something that wasn't resonating with truth. And what I now know to be true is that when you have an anxious attachment, your anxious attachment behavior will happen whether there is consistency or not. That's not the case for me. And I don't think it's the case for many awakened women. When there's mutual pursuit, consistency, and reciprocity, in those conditions, the feminine energy feels relaxed. She feels safe. She knows where she stands. This is the same in any relationship. Like your discernment is going to feel like there's something not right. I was in a job. I was in a job in a very weird cult. Long story. It was another episode. Um, and that whole time, this was before I just before my awakening and just before I was really listening to my own intuition. And I had the same feelings that there was something not right. There was that, so I would think about the situation. I would look at it in different angles. I would try to fix it in different ways. Um, but actually, when the conditions are consistent and mutually beneficial, and there is reciprocity there, I would never spiral into neediness or overthinking. And this is secure attachment. When I look at how I've tried to communicate with this person, it's secure attachment. It's open, it's clear, it's boundaried. And so if you're in a situation with a man and he's not pursuing, he's not initiating, he is withholding, he's not consistent, and you start to want more of his attention, or you're um ruminating, you're trying to work out what's going on. Um, this energy is not about being too much. It's actually an alarm bell and a consistent, it's a cosmic alarm within your own body. And it's telling you that this dynamic is inconsistent. There is withholding and it is emotionally unsafe. Now, I don't know why I kept wanting to experience something different with this guy. Now, that I don't know. But what I do know is that it's my body and my intuition which was telling me that something wasn't secure and that it wasn't nourishment and there was something off. So let's look at the two differences. Anxious attachment. An inner alarm goes off when, regardless of the situation, even if somebody is consistent and loving, you feel constant fear of abandonment, no matter what the other person does. I have never had that. Never had that in my life. This was the first situation in my life where this was showing up for me. So perhaps what he showed me and I got to look at was what it feels like when uh the relationship is completely and emotionally unsafe. And that's not a sign to hold on a little bit or cling a little bit harder to see if we can make it work. That's a sign to say it's time to walk away. It really is time to walk away unless that person is willing to shift their patterning. But, in this situation, there was definitely um, no interest in doing that. If somebody's willing to grow and evolve and look at and you communicate with them about how the dynamic is going. Anyway, but a secure baseline, you feel calm when it's healthy, but when it's unhealthy. So when you are securely attached and you feel calm when it's healthy, but when it's unhealthy, where there's inconsistency, where there's withholding, where there's lack of attunement, your system reacts. This is not pathology, this is discernment. So what this was my nervous system picking up on the truth of this relational field. And it was the absence of emotional safety and consistency that was creating dysregulation, um, and not the presence of love. And another thing, like he would say things, his words wouldn't match his actions. So he would say, I love you. I will change this or that, whatever things that we'd conversed about or experienced, and there would be no change in the behavior or saying, I love you, but they're not acting in loving ways. Now, I don't know what this person's situation is. Like, he is, got his shit. He has had, he's got to do his own work. But but what I've come out of it after 10 months is really with this deep and sound conclusion about what anxious attachment actually is and what discernment is, and knowing that actually I've never had anxious attachment and that this is clearly discernment about the relational field. Now, this is not a blame thing because there were things to investigate here, such as why part of me felt the need to hold on for so long. Um, but what is beautiful is knowing deeply through the contrast what the truth of the situation is and recognizing what emotional say like how emotional unsafety impacts the nervous system and how you can recognize that and truly at a much earlier stage once you've done your inner work decide once you've stepped into a really clear sense of self made into the queen, you will bless that and release it with love. And you'll begin to open up your field to really healthy divine masculine energy, you know? Yeah.